Sylvia recently earned her Managed Change Agent certification, and she called me last week asking for some advice. She told me that she worked with her sponsor and the senior leadership team to define the desired state for a major process change that the organization is going to be implementing later in the year. The desired state definition was very well done. I looked at it earlier, I proved it, gave her good feedback. The sponsor rolled out the desired state using a communication cascade strategy. 6 weeks after the communication, Sylvia did a survey to validate the understanding of the desired state. Less than 30% of the employees reported that they understood the desired state or why the change was happening. Her question to me was, if I did everything well, the desired state was well profiled, how did this happen? And what can I do to fix it? So my first question to Sylvia was, not knowing what her data collection strategy was, how did that come together? What strategy was she using for data collection? What process had she put in place? And what was the tool that she was using? What did it look like? Was it really targeted? Assuming that what Sylvia did was done well and that the tool was valid and should have given her the intended results, my next question was, what about the response rate? How was the survey actually administered? Did you get an appropriate representative sample? Is the result skewed in any way because of the responses that you got? Assuming again that all of that was done well, the next question becomes, was the desired state defined to the targets at the appropriate level for them to understand it? So you'll remember that in the approach Sylvia used with the sponsor, it was a leadership cascade. So the authorizing sponsor brought together his direct reports, delivered the desired state, had a discussion about the desired state, how it was going to impact the organization, and they were then left with a communication package. Again, if Sylvia did her job well, that communication package would be strong. It would address the questions of why, what, and how related to the change. What Sylvia couldn't control in her approach was the way in which that communication was cascaded. We may have had some organizations where the cascade was done extremely well. Questions were asked, the sponsor was truly on board, the sponsor was enthusiastic, the sponsor was able to answer their questions, help to operationalize and internalize the change from their vantage point. The other extreme, as many of you have experienced, is just the opposite, where the sponsor is not committed. The sponsor doesn't endorse the change, and therefore, even if she chooses to deliver the cascade, she may not do it with all of the vim and vigor and enthusiasm that is required. She may not be able to answer the questions. She may choose not to answer the questions. She may choose to minimize the entire cascade presentation. So we don't know what happened there. What I can tell you is that regardless whether it was a well-delivered presentation or whether it was a poorly delivered presentation, at the core of a leadership cascade strategy is the fact that at the top of that delivery, at the senior leadership level, the desired state is often defined and is often communicated at a high strategic level. And as the leadership in that organization continues to cascade the message down through the middle and ultimately to the bottom level of the organization, there is a different need at the bottom than there is at the top. Strategic definition of the desired state by senior leaders is sufficient. That same message at the bottom of the pyramid, where we have many of the targets who have to change their behavior, they are not able to take that strategic definition and implement it and operationalize it. They're looking for a tactical definition. How will this change impact me and my job, and when? When we think about a communication cascade, a change cascade of the desired state, there is that important middle level that is so critical in the cascade. Middle level managers, they have the responsibility for hearing the strategic definition and understanding the tactical requirement. They have to translate that message. They have to translate the desired state so that it can go from a strategic to a tactically operational definition, so that the targets lower in the organization, the targets who are truly impacted by the change because they have to deliver those changes, they need to understand it in their own language. So I would go back to Sylvia, I'd ask her that question, does she have any insight as to how effective the communication cascade was delivered? And one of her questions should have been targeted to whether the message was conveyed to those folks lower in the organization in a language that they can understand and with questions that they can target specifically to their job. The final question I would have for Sylvia is really about the change itself. What is this change? And is this change a desirable change for those who are impacted? Will the positive nature of the desired state pull people toward that desired state? Will they see it as a real positive and therefore move from acceptance, or will they move from resistance to acceptance easily? Or is the desired state less desirable? Is the desired state potentially viewed as a scenario where an individual is worse off than where they are today? The difference here, of course, is do we need to push the targets toward the desired state, or is the strength and quality and desirability of the desired state sufficient to pull them in that direction? That push or pull decision also plays out in the way in which this cascade may have been delivered. When we think about the communication of the desired state, several things to think about. We have 10 tips for your consideration. First, we start off with, is there a clear definition of the desired state at each level of the organization? Has the desired state been translated effectively from a strategic discussion or definition to a tactical operational definition? Third, have we spent any time, effort, energy predicting target resistance and making certain that we've included the mitigation actions into our communications, into our learning activities? Have we launched the change already? And in that launch, do we have clarity from the authorizing sponsor? Is that person who launched the cascade, is that person who initiated original communications, are they coming across demonstrating skill and will in their execution? Have we localized the messages to be target specific? Have we prepared foolproof communication strategies? Are the processes foolproof when we expect others to deliver them? Are our tools foolproof? And is there a feedback mechanism that enables us to test at the conclusion of a communication after it's been fully delivered? Can we test whether it in fact has been effective? Can we validate, or should we validate, that the reinforcing sponsors are committed to the change? Because if they're not committed, they're not going to deliver effectively. We can coach the sponsors in the delivery of their communications. We should be prepared to deliver communications and capture feedback. And finally, analyzing that feedback and making certain that from the feedback we receive, we adjust the go-forward plans.